Hello, New Zealand. This is episode number 35. It's good to be with you. Where's Simon? Simon is in Japan doing business there. And probably if you've been following him on Facebook, you'll see all these important meetings that he's going to. He's far too bright for me. But anyway, he will be back next week. So we have a guest panelist, and that is none other than Ro Edge. Now, Ro is a prolific poster on X. I follow her just to get the commentary from her. Ro, it's good to have you. For the benefit of our audience, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me, Bob. So I'm Ro Edge. I'm co-founder of Save Women's Sport and the International Consortium on Female Sport, and we're fighting just for basic fairness and safety for females in sport. So that's my advocacy side of what I do. And yes, I do like to post on X. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, you do. Now, lots to talk about tonight. I want to talk about the polls. We've got Te Pāti Māori. We've got a new Deputy Prime Minister. We've got Chris Bishop using the C word, but it's not quite as bad as the one that Brooke Van Velden used. We're going to talk about sports regulations getting a kick in the reality. And we might even raise your blood pressure a little bit and talk about Jacinda's new book, which I'm sure is on your shelf. But let's deal with a sort of a nicer one to start with. And firstly, the latest polls. So, let me just comment that if you want to send your comments through to us, go to our YouTube account, familyfirst.nz, Family First NZ, or go to our Facebook page, Family First NZ, and then we'll see your comments come through on the screen. Right, here we go. So topic number one, let's just have a look at the latest polls. So this is the latest one that came out from One News, and it shows that both National Labour down, but the benefactors were, and ACT was down as well, but the benefactors are Greens and New Zealand First, and that's why I've titled this New Zealand First and Greens Up. In terms of preferred Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins is still trailing Christopher Luxon. I think there was some evens. Now, the interesting thing, Ro, and this is the interesting thing about polls, isn't it, that Radio New Zealand released a poll as well, and they showed the opposite. They showed Labour slightly ahead of National, but they did admit that Greens and New Zealand First had increased. So probably the best thing to look at is this aggregate. It's all the polls that are taken by the various companies, and it aggregates them all just in 2025. And if you do that, you'll see there that Labour and National are sort of switching between each other. The Green Party have had that increase, little drop, but New Zealand First is just on a steady rise. It's quite interesting, and ACT is on a steady decrease. Let me just enlarge that so you can see that effect. So, Ro, what do you think is the basis? Why do you think New Zealand First and Greens are doing so well?
Well, I think that there is a real push from people to look at alternative parties. They want change. I mean, if you look to the UK and how Reform UK are doing over there, like people are just, I think, getting tired of the middle parties who really just vote swap, don't they? I mean, you look at those trends going along and they're just swapping middle voters. And so I think people, and you look at Chris Luxon as well, and pretty much Chris Hipkins too, like what do they stand for? What are they willing to stand up and fight for? Like they just really are trying to toe that middle ground, keep the middle voters. And I think they're actually leaving the field open for the likes of the Greens. I mean, I can't believe that, 12 point something percent of Kiwis
I know.
in a party that wants to bring in $88 billion more of tax and billions more of borrowing is a good idea alongside an absolute activist party. But that's the state we're in, right? We have a media who is so one-sided, and I think that probably the poll results reflect the timing as well, because it was just after the budget. And we all know what happened in the budget with the pay equity claims. National and ACT did not have their PR game sorted for that.
No.
And they got well and truly pummeled by the media and and the left. The left is the media, right? For that week after, which is when this polling took place.
Well, I call it the media party now because they're like a political party. Look,
Right.
let's come back to the polling on the budget and on the pay equity, because there's some interesting results around that. But as you alluded to, like Labor has normally the opposition benefits after a budget because often budgets aren't that popular. But Labor has gone down 3%, and basically the voters have just popped over to the Greens and Te Pāti Māori. So, yeah, it's interesting. Labor doesn't seem to be winning votes. It seems to be losing them. I wonder with National, I think you're right, Ro. I think that National's vote, people are wanting National to be strong on some issues they're not, and so they're going to New Zealand First because New Zealand First have been making the right noises. I mean, the most interesting thing I thought was that drop of ACT. That's not a good trend of ACTs, is it? That pink line down the bottom there. That's been going down in the last couple of months on the poll of polls. So ACT aren't having a good time, are they? Which, I mean, why do you think that is?
Well, I guess they're back to where they were election time, weren't they? So they're probably still moderately happy with that. I don't know, ACT probably wore a lot of the fallout from the budget as well, because they were the ones that really pushed through the $12.8 billion worth of savings from the pay equity claims. But yeah, I don't know. And New Zealand First, Winston Peters really stayed well clear of that. He didn't get involved in that debate at all, which probably, kept him clean for this. But I do think, though, when you, especially out in the provinces, I hear a lot of people now saying that they really rate New Zealand First and stand for what they stand for, something, the things that they really care about, the cultural issues, the social issues, just in terms of even the climate change stuff, the fossil fuel, like just making the best of New Zealand. And so I think that they're benefiting from the provinces. It would be really interesting if you actually looked at the demographics and where they lay. You'd probably find that the majority of New Zealand First voters are outside the cities.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I'm not quite sure why the the Green Party vote is so high, 12%, but then again, 5% think that Chloe should be Prime Minister.
Right? But you look at them, that they brought out their alternative budget, and as much as we detest it and know it would actually cripple the country and it would just be a nightmare, they made a lot of promises, and there's a lot of people out there that don't understand the detail, but they hear free doctors, free dentists, free uni, like everything, and they go, wow, that'd be cool. So why wouldn't I vote for them? Not understanding the repercussions.
Okay, let's have a look at the reaction to the budget, because I think, as you mentioned, if you listen to the mainstream media, the budget was a complete dive. Everybody hated it, and everybody hates the whole pay equity arrangement. So this is the One News Varian poll. 39% were satisfied and 43% were dissatisfied. Maybe that's just right and left block votes. I mean, that's within the margin of error. And then, interestingly, similar figures. Do you support the changes to the pay equity scheme? 39% support, 45% oppose. Once again, a margin of error, 16% didn't know or preferred not to say. I mean, for the opposition to be less than 50%, golly, if you believe the hype and media and heat around the issue, you would think the whole country, in fact, I think I heard Chloe Schwarbrick actually quoted on media saying, every New Zealander hates this, what they've done, pay equity, but that's not the case. Interesting result, eh?
No, it isn't. But I have to say, if I was polled about what I thought about the budget, I'd probably be in that percent that thought it was bad for New Zealand. It was the mother of all. Let's tinker around the edges and continue Labor's path of record spending and not actually take the opportunity to tighten the belt and actually save money and get our economy back in order. And, they called it the growth budget. I think there was only one lever in there to get growth, and it was like 1% over 20 years. You contrast that with what Milei has done in Argentina, and he's just achieving like economic growth of 8% because he's actually made the tough decisions and done what the country needed to actually get that growth to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the latest polls. We'll watch those with interest. Now, as we speak in Parliament behind us, virtually, they are debating the whole punishment for Te Pāti Māori for doing the haka. Let's deal with the haka issue. Interestingly, so they're debating, the Privileges Committee has said 21 days for the co-leaders and 7 days for Hannah Rafferty Maipi Clark. Did I get that right? Anyway, the younger MP. So they did some polling on this. This is actually from Radio New Zealand, so lefty media, government funded. But they asked, what do you think about the punishment? And look, it's even Stevens just under 40% say about right, just under 40% say it's too harsh, and actually almost 20% say it's too lenient. So let's add too lenient to about right, and 21 days punishment, actually a lot of people are agreeing with. Let's break it down into parties. And this is the net difference. Obviously, national voters and New Zealand First voters and ACT voters strongly agree with it. But Labour voters actually aren't sort of totally against it as much as the Green voters. So, I mean, once again, Ro, that sort of goes against the whole narrative that 21 days is just completely unreasonable. Actually, what we think is the general public think they've probably got it about right, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why the speeches that I have listened to from Labor in the House have been quite moderate, because they've actually picked up that sense in the polls that their voters actually agree with the punishment. And I think we're all just getting sick of this, the divisions that have been created by Te Pāti Māori. And I think that's just reflected in these polls.
Okay, let's just look at, there was a bit of a stir because apparently ACT leader David Seymour, in the House, he yelled out idiot during a debate on the Regulatory Standards Bill. He offered it in the direction of Te Pāti Māori. Apparently, the MP Kapakingi was speaking at the time, and her son, which is the guy that organised the Treaty's principal protest, posted this.
David Seymour crossed the line when he attacked my mum in Parliament. This just got personal. He obviously wasn't raised in the hood, because the number one rule is if you talk smack about someone's mum, then you're bound to get slapped up. And generally, he just wasn't raised right. Let's be honest, he gives off that vibe like he's going to call his own mama an idiot. But where I'm from and in my culture, we respect people's mamas, and we respect the fire and the kuia who hold down our entire existence in Te Ao Māori. This is just part and parcel of this normalized behavior of stepping on wahine, attacking wahine, and making them feel less than, something that happens daily in Parliament in Wellington, and that is propagated by these narcissistic, misogynistic MPs. So I'm letting it be known, I'm mad, and I'm not going to let this stop here. So I'm thinking, how about a charity fight? Let's make it happen. If I win, and I'm going to donate all of the funds to initiatives that centre around Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and if you win, you probably won't need it because you get donated heaps of money by super rich elite people who are controlling you and your party anyway. But on the real, this would never happen because you're a drop nuts and you don't want this smoke.
Charming. I was fascinated to see that he's also a professional teaching fellow with the University of Auckland. So
that's amazing.
Incredible.
And did you notice he also used to apparently work for the Māori Party in Parliament, and he didn't have his facial tattoo then. That just miraculously appeared before the protest to Parliament, as I understand. Look, I don't know, why is it that Te Pāti Māori have to resort to violence all the time? Why can they not actually have a debate?
Yeah. Well, this is a question I was going to ask you, did that come across, I mean, I've got it in the topic line. Was that threat of violence, or was that just rhetoric, in your view?
I just think it was rhetoric. It had some violent tones to it, but I think it was more just it just made him look like he was incapable of having a debate, and we'll just have a little schoolboy fight instead. You know, it just looks immature. It doesn't make them look good, and I think people are just getting more and more over it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think it does their cause any good at all.
No, and that's why I wonder whether the response to the punishment for Te Pāti Māori is actually a reflection of just the frustration, or people are just a little bit sick of the antics and
we're all fatigued by it, aren't we?
Yeah,
it's just relentless. Yeah.
So I just wonder whether that's coming across.
I do think, though, that if we reverse that round, and if an ACT MP or the child of an ACT MP had done that on social media, the media would have been all over them. But unfortunately, New Zealand media don't hold far left activists to account, because I guess a lot of them are on the far left.
Okay, just a couple of comments through. Delwyn says you're spot on. Jackie says Kapakingi had already had a nasty speech in Parliament and a national member objected about it. Nothing more said about it. So that's the mum. Simply Green, whiny child, obviously hasn't got a lot of tolerance for that. Rosie says it's like the song that doesn't end, it just goes on and on. Sue Reed says he's promoting his business, which is probably true. Andrea says, love the Kiwi ingenuity. We used to be one, now we have been cheese grated through the system. Let's be Kiwis again. I hate politics. And yeah, okay, so some interesting comments coming through there. All right, we have had a change in the number 2 seat. Let me just put up this lovely photo here. There we are, David Seymour being embraced by Christopher Luxon, the Prime Minister. And there's the Governor General in the background being basically appointed as Deputy Prime Minister. Let me just show you. So I guess there's 2 strands to this row that I'm just interested to get your thoughts on. The first is the change in the leadership and what it's going to mean in terms of Seymour being the Deputy Prime Minister, but also what has Winston Peters achieved in the last 18 months? Has it been good experience, him being the Deputy Prime Minister? For David Seymour, though, he did this speech on Sunday. I don't know where they put those little glass things on either side that you look at and you're supposed to look as though you're speaking off the cuff. It looks really awkward when you watch this clip of David Seymour, but just have a listen to the content of what he says in this bit.
Our opponents are a Labor Party, best described as lost, a Green Party that barely talks about the environment. Once upon a time, they wanted to sacrifice the economy for the environment. These days, the Green Party wants to sacrifice the economy for no reason at all. And then there's the extraordinary spectre of a race-based political party that increasingly threatens violence to its opponents, tolerated by the media. What unites them is a poverty of spirit. Their idea that other people's success is not an example of what's possible, but somehow the source of their supporters' problems. And they traffic in the idolisation of envy. And even if they manage to sell it, it still won't work. ACT, on the other hand, and our celebration today shows that anyone can dance. Yes, our country faces problems, but we know in ACT how to overcome them.
Okay, some pretty good comments from him. I thought, a lot of people did credit his speech. Did you get the chance to read his full speech, Ro?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think it was an excellent speech, and I'm looking forward to hearing his Oxford Union speech. So it's quite classic. His first day as being Deputy Prime Minister, and Winston Peters is sitting in as Prime Minister because both of them were out of the House, both Luxon and Seymour. So I thought it was quite ironic when I heard Labor say that David Seymour is going to be a threat to democracy, given how they robbed Kiwis of our freedoms through COVID. Just, the rhetoric from them is just ridiculous. They try to make out David Seymour to be far right. Yes, he's definitely on the right side of politics, but he's not far right. In terms of Winston, I think he's proven himself to be an excellent Deputy Prime Minister. He's an outstanding Foreign Affairs Minister as well. I think when you watched him and Chris Luxon together, there's definitely a lot of respect from Chris Luxon for Winston. That came across really clearly. It's going to be interesting, the Luxon-Seymour relationship, how that goes. I think it might be a little bit awkward to begin with, but hopefully they'll settle in.
Yeah. I think that Winston was very clever by saying that he would go first. And I actually said it at the time that the decision was made as to who would have the first 18 months. Because, as Winston has admitted, he's now in campaign mode. He's going to go into election year not having to uphold the position of Deputy Prime Minister. He can just go all guns blazing. And so I expect everything to rack up. So I think Winston was actually quite wily on that choice, wasn't he?
Oh, he was very, very clever. Yeah, it does allow him to use the next 18 months to differentiate himself from National, which will be good for him. Yeah.
So is David Seymour going to be able to do that, or is that going to cause friction? I mean, I think everyone is expecting that there is going to be friction in election year between the three coalition, and I'm not sure that anybody would be surprised by that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will build up. Like probably from the 6 months out from the election, you would want to see David Seymour differentiating himself as well. So yeah, that's to be expected, and I think that's healthy as well for them to all stand up for what they believe in and to be able to have those debates and to see how they handle them.
I haven't really had a problem with there being two deputy prime ministers. I mean, it's really a position by title only. Occasionally you sit in. I mean, that is ironic that Winston Peters is sitting in as acting prime minister. Would he have been acting prime minister or acting deputy prime minister?
Prime minister. Well, I think he was acting prime minister in the House today. Yeah,
Okay.
acting deputy prime minister, but sitting in for the prime minister in the House.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was flying back from Wellington. Was questions actually being peppered at him, at Winston Peters on behalf of the Prime Minister?
I didn't actually see the House today,
No,
sorry. I
okay,
just watched some of
no.
the speeches of the debate after.
No, some of us have better things to do. I totally understand that. All right. Okay. Right. Chris Bishop got into trouble because he went to the Music Awards and there was a bit of politicising going on there. This is what happened. Performative acclaim, let's all stand up. He's obviously had enough and he gets his drink. The problem was someone was filming it and some people heard him, and apparently as a cabinet minister, for him to disagree with a political statement at a music award is just a no-no, especially to one Breakfast, of course, who just couldn't let it go and tried to get the Prime Minister involved.
Can we talk about Minister Bishop? At a public event, the Aotearoa Music Awards, during Stan Walker's performance, he said, "What a load of crap." Is that acceptable behaviour from a senior minister?
Well, as he said, and as he's acknowledged, he should have kept his opinions to himself. People have lots of different ranges and different reactions to music and what they like and don't like. I like a lot of country music. People don't sometimes, I find. He said, he should have kept his thoughts to himself. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so that should have been dealt with, Ro. It should have been end of, but hey, they don't let go.
Will you be having a word with him?
I spoke to him on the weekend, but, just to get his side of the story. As he said, he came out, before I'd even got a chance to talk to him to say, look, he should have kept his thoughts to himself, and that's pretty good. Okay, so he's dealt with it twice, but they still don't let go.
Yeah. The song itself, though, celebrates Māori identity and te reo Māori. Even if the minister saw this as having political elements in it, was it appropriate?
Well, look, musicians have taken shots at politicians for centuries, and politicians will respond for centuries as well. And everybody has quite different musical tastes. I wasn't there, but, as he said, he could have acknowledged, or has acknowledged that he could have kept his opinions to himself.
Well, should he keep his opinions to himself, Ray?
Oh, gosh, another reason not to watch Breakfast TV. Jeepers.
I know.
The way the media responded, you'd think that he had threatened violence against Stan Walker, right? That was just ridiculous. Instead, he just upset the sensibilities of these morally superior, righteous, bloody leftists. No, he shouldn't have apologised. Well, I don't think he did apologise, really. He just admitted he probably should have maybe whispered it or kept it to himself. But good on him for not saying that, He apologised for it, because it is crap. Like, we have it's a taxpayer-funded music awards, and it's been hijacked by a political party. And I don't know what it is with the music industry these days. I think Annie O'Brien articulated the activism fatigue, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier as well, that a lot of Kiwis are feeling on her Substack this week. And I just want to read out something that she put on there, because I thought it was well said. If a musician in New Zealand ever did harbour the outrageous perspective that our elected government are not a bunch of genocidal fascists, they would certainly not voice it. To do so would be career suicide. They would not dare speak the thought that it is a load of crap and that Māori never ceded sovereignty. I think it's pretty clear the music industry is dominated by elites, and they're all trying to outdrive each other on who can be the most woke.
Yeah, it seems like, the media party certainly just dumped on Chris Bishop and said it was just a complete no-no to have an opinion, even though there was a political opinion from the other side happening on stage and being given priority. And like you say, if it had been the other way around, and somebody had said, well, why aren't you talking about the Treaty of Waitangi, if they said that from the audience, the media wouldn't have a problem with it. So it did seem a dump on Chris Bishop for being a bit loud. I'm just a bit sorry that Christopher Luxon felt that he needed to say, oh, yes, well, I did have a chat to him, and yeah, I did. He did realise it was inappropriate. I think he should be saying, no, there was a political statement made in an event, and he had the right to say, well, he didn't agree with it.
Exactly. Luxon just made it about the music genre. It was nothing to do with the music. It was to do with the political activism. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody turns up to music awards and expects that there'll be a strong conservative pro-government approach, isn't there? I mean, maybe that's why David Seymour wasn't there, and it was only Chris Bishop. Actually, why was Chris Bishop there? He's the Minister of...
I think he just loves music, loves Kiwi music, and wanted to support it. Yeah.
Well, I did laugh when Christopher Luxon was trying to bat away and make it a joke about country music, but oh no, he wasn't allowed to do that. So yeah, very interesting. No. All right, let's move on to a topic that I know that you are very interested in, and it's, well, of course, we saw at the Olympics this horrific scene of what was clearly a male in the women's boxing ring and completely annihilating female boxers to the point that the females started boycotting and making a stand against it. This week, leaked medical report proves that actually he was a dude.
Shock horror.
Yeah, shock horror. Who would have thought? And I thought it was interesting also, and I know you'll comment on this because this is your specialist area. You're very passionate about it. We love it. Is that World Boxing have finally figured out that, gee, maybe just the dudes should be in the male section and the females should have their own section to themselves. So what's going on here, Ro?
Oh, there's actually quite a bit going on behind the scenes. I think that there's been at least 2 tests now that we're aware of that verify that Khalif is male. And, you know, it was pretty obvious when the Algerian team coaches put him on their shoulders, because they would never do that to a female given, you know, their religious religion in Algeria. What's going on here is a lot of pressure has come on World Boxing. They released their statement last week saying that they were going to implement sex testing, and they mentioned that Khalif wouldn't be eligible to participate. So there's an upcoming tournament, I think, next month. And then they got a lot of pressure from the African bloc of both World Boxing's representative and also the IOC African bloc, which is really strong because you've got 50 plus odd countries there. And so this week, the president, Boris van der Vorst, he wrote this grovelling letter to the Algerian Boxing Federation apologising for naming Khalif and basically promising that none of their records would be taken away, none of his records for beating women would be taken away, and apologising profusely. Like, there's been no apologies to the females whose lives they risked by putting Khalif in the ring. It's infuriating. So we're just hoping that this apology is as far as it's going to go, and they're not going to backtrack, because the president of World Boxing is up for re-election in November. And no doubt he wants to keep his cushy position. So if the African bloc threaten to not vote for him, who knows where this could go?
Have we reached a cultural tipping point on this madness in terms of we're seeing some changes in boxing? We've seen the farce in weightlifting. We've seen soccer bodies or football bodies start to come out and say, actually, only women in the women's division. That was in some of the British in England and Wales. Are we starting to see this turning point, do you think?
Well, yeah, because it's just become so obvious that there are a lot of males self-identifying into female sport now. You know, we were told when I started Save Women's Sport over 5 years ago that there's only a few. Just be kind, you know. It doesn't matter, but like there's not just a few. And it's amazing how much impact even one male and female sport can have. But yeah, in terms of football and stuff, most of the big federations now, swimming, athletics, cricket, etc., they have all changed their policies to protect females. But the IOC and FIFA are the two ones who haven't. They're remaining steadfast in not protecting females. And they're also the ones who have the big African blocs that are very, very influential. And the big African blocs are the ones that have the DSD athletes. So, for instance, Zambia, I don't know how many DSD athletes, males, participated in the female football team at the Olympics, but there was at least a few. It's in their interest, as it was in Algeria's interest, to win gold medals, right? There is a lot of prestige, a lot of money that comes into those sports for winning gold medals, and they will have shown that they will do anything it takes to do that, including risking killing females, because, like, the people underestimate how dangerous it was. The male punching power is 160% more than females. Khalif could have killed a woman in that ring. And the IOC sanctioned that. They sanctioned male violence on the world stage. And I don't think we've ever seen something so disgusting ever before.
Okay, one of our speakers at our Forum on the Family, end of August, 28th and 29th, forumonthefamily.nz, is Kirralie Smith, who you may be aware of in Australia. And she's before the court. She's had 9 court appearances already, simply for, as a mum, calling out biological males playing in the girls' soccer teams. And, I mean, the videos show absolutely trouncing them, a little bit like that netball player, the dude who was playing in the women's netball in Australia as well, who felt that he was justified for playing in the women's netball because some coaches had approached him from various teams to play for them, because they're still trying to figure out their biology as well. That doesn't justify anything. But in terms of New Zealand, I mean, the common factor between Australia and New Zealand is a person called Raelene Castle, who's the head of Sport New Zealand still. Is that still the obstacle for us getting some biological sense in New Zealand?
Yeah, it is. So in October last year, Chris Bishop who was the then sports minister, directed Raelene Castle at Sport New Zealand to change the transgender guidelines to prioritise fairness and safety. It's been 8 months and they were meant to be released this month, but we are part of the stakeholder group who will be giving feedback on them, and we haven't even received them yet. So Raelene Castle is just delaying this process, and I'm pretty sure what they're going to produce is going to be more ideological dribble, because the whole document is full of it. I don't know how you can change that document to prioritise fairness and safety when the whole purpose of it is to prioritise inclusion. For us, the whole document needs to be ripped up, thrown out, and we actually sent an email to Winston Peters today highlighting the fact that no action is actually happening here, and it was time for that document to go completely. It's not fixable, and maybe that's the reason it's taken so long for Sport New Zealand, but I can just see that they'll release this update. It won't be satisfactory. They'll be sent back for another rewrite, and all of a sudden we're in election year and nothing happens. Well, I'm not going to let that happen. So we just need to keep the pressure on. But for Kirralie, like over in Australia is a mess. There's a women's football team over there that has 5 male players. And you would think when that happens, it would be enough for sanity to prevail and people to go, enough is enough. But no, not in Australia. It's quite a misogynistic environment over there.
So I'm really fascinated as to what's going to happen in 2028, because that's the next Olympics, but it happens to be in America, in LA, and that's a country where the president is currently Donald Trump, and he knows biology. And so what's going to happen when you get the clash of a country that says there's only male and female, and the Olympics who are woke?
And
any idea what's going to happen?
The most woke state in the US as well. As far as I'm aware, at the end of the day, the US, Trump will have the say there, and no males will be allowed. But whether, that actually happens or not, how much control they have over that, it's, amazing how many lies are told to win gold medals.
Incredible. Okay, that might be the more interesting sport, just to watch the politics leading up to the Olympics and how they're going to figure out biology.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Hey, just in terms of sports journalists, it's a shame we don't have any with courage in New Zealand. I've had off the record conversations with a number of older male sports journalists, and they say, look, I totally agree, but there's no way I can say that. Over in the UK, there's a couple of really good sports journalists, Sean Ingle and Oliver Brown. And Oliver Brown writes for The Telegraph in the UK, and he wrote a brilliant article this week. And he said in it, a woman could, as a direct consequence of profoundly flawed official policy, have died in that Paris ring. That is the stark truth. The Khalif scandal should be ranked amongst the worst in Olympic history, a saga where the sport's most powerful administrators became so seduced by gender ideology, so enthralled to the lie that womanhood was reducible to some frivolous passport detail, that they were prepared to put the very lives of female boxers in peril. And it's, it's such a shame, Bob, that we don't have more journalists that can be honest about this. Instead, they call Khalif her and she, just to insult women even further.
Okay, a couple of comments. June, just back to that Bishop issue. Luxon hasn't a clue. Bishop was there as an individual, made a comment that he thought it was crap. It was someone near him in the crowd who took offence, true, not the performers. I can't see anything wrong with the person in the audience voicing his opinion. It's not a crime, for goodness sake. Luxon is the reason the coalition is polling badly. He doesn't support his MPs. Politics shouldn't have interfered with a music festival. I guess if you're there as the Minister of the Crown, I guess there's some expectation of behaviour, maybe. Let's just, there was one here. No, I won't read that one. That's a naughty one. No, okay, let's move on. That's the trouble. I can't actually preview them. Rosie says in equestrian sport, men and women compete on a level playing field, except for the lady rider class at New Zealand, the Horse of the Year show. Anyway, okay, let's move on to something. This may raise your blood pressure a little bit, Ro. And
he's trying to trigger me, right?
I know, I'm trying to trigger you. There's a new book out, and I'm interested.
I said, can we please not talk about Jacinda?
Well, this is a new book. It is out. And, of course, there are interviews galore. And, I mean, this is a very negative one. Reading it like one long therapy session. Actually, was that relating to the reader having one long therapy session or the author?
No, that was relating to Ardern. Is that Tim Stanley from the Telegraph?
Yeah.
He said a virtue signalling memoir that was like one long therapy session dedicated to the criers, warriors, and huggers.
Oh, okay. I don't think I'm in those categories. But then, of course, the Left-Wing Guardian said empathy is a kind of strength. Jacinda Ardern on kind leadership, public rage, and life in Trump's America. I do just want to show a couple of clips just to really wind you up, Ro. But hey, here's a question I have for you, because the statement is made that the opposition and the dislike of Jacinda Ardern's policies and her time as Prime Minister is just misogyny. But when I read some of the comments and I look at who's making the comments, I see a lot of them are female as well as male. And I know that you certainly are not one to be making kind comments, or at least you're not a big supporter of her. So by implication, are you a misogynist?
Not at all. Not at all. Like, we should be able to critique female leaders, right? And yes, there was, I agree, there was some misogyny with Jacinda Ardern, but likewise, we've seen that with other female MPs, but it doesn't get called out when it's misogyny against the right. But when it's women, I was trying to think of a nice way to put this, because we had a conversation earlier and I said a word and you went, no. But I struggle. It can be bitchy. So, I'm sorry, but sometimes women can be bitchy. And I do see a lot of that between women. But with Jacinda Ardern, I guess my problem is that she goes on about her empathy all the time, but there was no empathy for so many Kiwis during COVID. There was no empathy for those of us who chose not to get an experimental vaccine into our healthy bodies because we thought we didn't need it, and we were treated as second-class citizens. There was no empathy for people who wanted to get back and see loved ones. You know, she goes on that she's so empathetic, but we didn't see that. And I think that's why she doesn't feel comfortable coming back to New Zealand either. And we should be able to say that without it being called misogynistic.
Okay, I did laugh at this comment from Robert. So bad, I'd rather read Prince Harry's book. I'd
probably agree, actually.
That's how bad it is. Simply Green says, look, they're all fair game. Dee Dee says, look, they are in politics. So that is true. It is about critiquing politicians without getting personal.
And
Although
she She was so flowery all the way through, right? Like, you can't underestimate how good her PR skills are. I mean, she is
Yeah.
exceptional at it, and I'll give her credit for that. But there was a whole lot of fluff through her reign and not much action. Everything we saw, like the crime, the child poverty, the economy, everything went backwards under her, and that all gets washed away as if she's just some amazing leader because she says she has empathy. You know, she hugged a few people and she showed emotion. Well, you know, good on her for doing that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that as a leader, she was so bad that she had to leave well before an election because she knew she was going to get hammered.
Okay, I saw a fascinating review on Newsroom, which is definitely not a right-wing, a very left-wing friendly website. And it's by Tim Murphy, who's, I think, the senior editor. He said, Jacinda's excellent at analysing herself, but average at analysing her government and record. He's obviously read the book. He says there's big gaps. It's not a book which gives a full political context. There's not much on the COVID years, no mention of her 2020 election opponent, Judith Collins, bare reference to COVID-era economics, borrowing and spending, or of the suite of second-term political quicksands like Three Waters that dragged her government and Ardern personally down. This is from a left-wing commentator on a left-wing site.
Refreshing. Yeah, that's very refreshing, because I didn't think we would get an honest review from New Zealand media, given how much money Jacinda invested in them through COVID. So that's great. There was
Okay, we'll just go on.
Kiwi blog piece I think you shared with me. Are you going to share that now?
No, I printed it out, but I don't know where I put it. There's too many papers on my desk.
It's worth reading. If you go to Kiwi blog, there's a great piece on there, and it's quite poetic, actually, just to read it from that aspect. But he concluded in celebrating that truth, the memoir, the truth that, you know, she was empathetic, etc. The memoir offers a compass for every government bold enough to govern by hope alone, secure in the belief that smiles travel further than spreadsheets. I thought that summed it up pretty well.
Okay, Sue Reed is one of our panellists on Straight Talk and a bookseller. A hardback at $59.99 and only 321 pages makes it slim pickings for a memoir. Compare that to 2 volumes for Thatcher and Menzies. It pulls up short for quality text, and that is probably true.
Bob, I think it will sell well, though. I do think it will be a bestseller, not in New Zealand, but it will sell okay here. But internationally, you know, her PR campaign, as I said, she's exceptional at it. She was on Oprah, I think you said today. You know, she's got all the interviews going on, and yeah, I have to say, she's looking quite gorgeous at the moment for Jacinda. So, you know, that smile and her PR skills will sell lots of books.
That's a lack of stress of perhaps not being Prime Minister. I mean, I saw John Key age in real time while he was Prime Minister. Look, I want just to wind you up a little bit. I just want to because I think you're right. The PR has been the key, and the thing that I've noticed is that she is only doing interviews on friendly media who are asking patsy questions, softball questions. The classic was, of course, state-funded Radio New Zealand. And I'm just going to show you 3 quick questions that Jesse Mulligan, who used to be on The Project on TV3, that awful program, that he put to Jacinda Ardern, and just listen to the way she answers them or doesn't answer them. So this was the first question, and it was around what the Royal Commission had said about lockdowns, etc.
See, the Royal Commission concluded last year that the government was perhaps too harsh when it came to mandates and lockdowns. Do you agree with them?
Well, I mean, we put them in place for a reason. We put them in place because we felt that we weren't the ones best placed to say, here's the key learnings from this experience. And we wanted to learn.
Okay, so I won't play too much of that because it'll wind you up. But then Jesse Mulligan, to his credit, says, well, hang on, did the mandates go too far? Did she answer this question?
Do you agree with their conclusions that the mandates and the lockdowns went too far?
Well, I think they also acknowledged the basis on which those decisions were being made.
Okay, and then she was asked, well, if you were in the same position, would you go easier next time on mandates and vaccinations, etc., and lockdowns?
You won't get to make that decision again, probably, but would you counsel future Prime Ministers to look at their findings and go easier on things like vaccine mandates next time and lockdowns?
Well, again, I would firstly, I guess, wish for them to see that they'd never have that experience?
It was kind of like when my kids have been caught doing something and I ask them, did you do it? And they just don't answer the question.
Oh, I know. And as for the Royal Commission they put in place, I mean, that Royal Commission really was just to give them the answers that, that they did a good job. There was nothing in there that was going to really critique their response.
No. It was still, I mean, in fairness, the Royal Commission actually did make a few doozy statements that really put the government on the back foot, though, or Chris Hipkins on the back foot when he was confronted by some of these issues. But she just, I mean, I think that's the thing that really worried me, was there was no sort of sense of, yeah, well, with the benefit of hindsight, we did go overboard on the mandates, or the lockdowns were over the top, or keeping people not being able to return to the country, or not allowing funerals to take place. There's no acknowledgement, just doesn't want to answer. And that's the sad part, because I think we gave the benefit of the doubt that at the time there was decisions being made that they didn't have all the information. It was after they had a lot more information that they just weren't willing to bend on anything, weren't they?
No, and that was the problem. And I think that's the frustration as well, is that there's no admission that they didn't get things right. Just a simple, yeah, look, we could have done better. We're really sorry that we didn't learn from our mistakes earlier. But yeah, no apology, no reflection. Just keep smiling, Jacinda.
Well, that's what happens when you go to nice interviewers who don't really press you on anything. Actually, the only thing that did Radio New Zealand did press, and remember, this is our state broadcaster, I just did a little collation of a couple of questions that Jesse Mulligan put to Jacinda Ardern, softball, but he was pressing for an answer, and he comes across with a very clear political bias. This is from the government-funded state broadcaster. Have a watch.
Mentor Phil Goff has been quite critical of Trump since he's been able to. You don't have anything holding you back, but I haven't seen you say much about President Trump and what many view as a threat to democracy and well, I could give you the list, but have you been too quiet on him? Trump is, of course, the face of the other style of leadership. What have you got to lose by saying his name and saying, this is what he's doing wrong and I speak out against it? Do you not think you could do some good globally by putting a face and a voice, and you're an incredible communicator, putting a voice to the opposition to Trump?
Oh, there we go. So the official position of the state broadcaster is that Trump bad man, and everyone needs to stand up against him.
It's pretty much reflective of our legacy media, isn't it? I mean, the interview with Helen Clark, I think we're going to discuss soon as well. Like, the interviewer there just completely planted those questions. It was total Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, final topic. And that is, look, it actually does, it's Helen Clark being interviewed on 3 News once again, puff piece, lots of leading questions, softball questions. It does raise a question, Ro. Ex-prime ministers, should they be rolled out again? Should the media be going to them? Or, I mean, my argument is, once you've been prime minister, you've been given so much oxygen and so much airtime that really you should be like Bill English, and you really should move to different areas, use your skill set in other areas. But we don't want you to keep being trotted out as saying, oh, well, I would have done this because I'm a better prime minister. You got voted out, so therefore your season has come to an end. I don't see a lot of... Actually, Jim Bolger's been used a little bit. I've seen him comment only when he's got left-wing views, generally. John Key, maybe once in a blue moon.
But neither of them have set up an NGO, have they? I mean, Helen Clark really learnt from the UN how to have influence in politics, and so her NGO definitely has been, it's basically funded to push the left-wing agenda. And, the media just love it. They just soak it up.
And Jacinda has her NGO called the Christchurch Call with Macron.
Exactly. But then they go on about ACT and Atlas, even though there isn't a link. So it's...
Yeah. Okay, just to finally keep everyone's blood pressure up as they're watching this, Helen Clark had this softball question, and it was all about Musk doing this Nazi salute. They've obviously never observed anyone with neurodivergency at all, but did Musk do a Nazi salute? And Helen Clark's got some doozy words that she uses. in this interview. Have a watch. I have been a little bit creative when she talks about the Nazi salute, as you'll see.
At Trump's inauguration, in your view, did Elon Musk do a Nazi salute?
Well, it looked like it, you know, and what's the old saying? If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck.
That looks like a Nazi
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you.
At Trump's inauguration, in your view,
Oh, sorry,
did
my
Elon
fault.
Musk
I
do a
started that
Nazi
again.
salute?
You failed to find the one where she put her hand up.
You know, and
I saw
what's
that
the
on
old saying? If
Sonic
it looks
this
like
week.
a duck.
Yeah, sorry, I just accidentally pressed pause. Let me just take that forward a bit.
There's a lot that's going on in the world today that makes one think it might have felt like this in the 1930s. We're seeing
Ooh.
the surge of the populist authoritarian right, if you like, winning a lot of seats in parliaments in Europe, for example. So this is a concern. It's a bit chilling. It brings back memories of a genocide in the lead up to and during World War II.
Oh dear, gosh, there was a lot of lead words. And then, of course, everybody started posting this photo when she lost power as Prime Minister. That looks, I mean, if it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it is a duck.
Must be a duck. I know, honestly, cutting waste is like genocide. Would you believe it? Talk about classic lefty hysteria.
Well, there's lots of loaded words there. And I actually tweeted today that she won't be too pleased with the result in Poland because a Christian conservative, right-wing, far-right, what do they say?
Far
Populist.
right now, aren't we?
I don't know why they use the word
Everyone.
populist as an insult, because populist actually suggests that, to me, it suggests that actually democratically the people want you as their political leader. Yeah.
No,
So why do they see it as an insult?
I know. I think they're just trying to throw insults everywhere, aren't they? I think they can see that people are turning, that people are waking up to their stuff. The thing that annoys me most about Helen Clark is, she calls Musk a Nazi, but it's her husband that is peddling the anti-Semitic tropes. And she hasn't spoken out about that at all.
Okay, well summed up. Ro, you have done a fantastic job. I might send a little text to Simon that says his position is under threat, just to make him a little bit.
Anyway, it was nice to be able to fill in for him, but I'm sure you'll be glad he's back next week.
No, we do appreciate your time, and yes, we will be back next week. And in fact, I will be missing, and Simon will be here with Brendan Malone for Political Playback. But anyway, Ro, thank you very much. Been fantastic. Done a great job, and thank you for watching, and have a great night.